up, guys? We are back for another video, and with the majority of the offseason over in terms of roster acquisitions, we are going to discuss a topic today that has been requested by a lot of people, and it is the teams that improved the most this offseason. From March through really the end of the draft is the time where teams add big name players, and of course there will be a signing here or there that, may make some noise, but nothing is going to be like the first couple days of free agency and of course the first night of the NFL draft. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing a few NFL teams that improved the most and should really improve the record from 2020 to 2021. But before we get started and dive into those said teams, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We begin today's video with the New York Jets, and as much as people like to meme and make fun of the Jets for this or that, or for giving up a huge play to Henry Ruggs and letting the Raiders win the game and whatever, right? They had a terrific offseason, and I know you might be thinking, well, yes, they got Zach Wilson and Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, but what's that matter if they give up 50 to 55 points a game with the defense they have? Well, what I'm going to say is the path that they're heading down with Zach Wilson is miles better than the path they headed down with Sam Darnold. As with Sam, it was like, okay, Sam's the savior of the franchise, we're done. Like, just do whatever we got to do now. Like, Sam will take care of it. We can give him, a wide receiver 4 and a wide receiver 5, and he's Sam Darnold, so he's going to take care of it. And in reality, that is not the case. Sam Darnold was a good prospect coming out of USC, but he was not Trevor Lawrence, and Sam needed help, and quite frankly, the Jets never gave him help. Now, we'll see how he does in Carolina, but how that translates to Zach Wilson is the Jets have done, and Joe Douglas, the GM, has done the exact opposite with Zach Wilson so far in terms of building around him. Zach Wilson has a franchise left tackle in Mekhi Becton, and now he has a franchise left guard in Elijah Vera Tucker, and Joe Douglas knows now that he does not have to mess with either of those positions for the next decade. They have their left tackle and left guard for effectively the Zach Wilson era as we see it at this point in time. Now, if Zach plays 10 plus years in New York, then eventually they'll have to address it, but for the first, 10 years of Zach's career, those two positions are taken care of, and Elijah Moore is a home run hitter, and while I'm not the biggest fan of him, I do think he will succeed and thrive in New York because, in a sense, Zach Wilson is the quarterback version of Elijah Moore. He's a home run waiting to happen, and, pairing these guys up will translate to big plays. Now, Corey Davis has never lived up to the 5th overall pick expectations. That's just the truth, guys, right? I know a lot of Corey Davis fans sometimes, I don't want to say get sensitive, but they get a little defensive of him, but Corey Davis never lived up to the 5th overall pick expectations. But him being in New York now and helping a young rookie quarterback out is perfect. He's not expected to be Randy Moss or whoever, right? He's just expected to be a good move the chains guy, and that's exactly what he will be in the Big Apple. I do like everything New York did in terms of helping Zach Wilson out, and with a team that finished, the second worst in the league and had 2 wins in 2020, there's a lot more holes on the roster than just, one hole. It's not like they just, they were just one position away from going 12-4 last year with the 16-game schedule and, going to an AFC Championship game. There's a lot more than just that. So to build around Zach Wilson and to give him multiple weapons and really do the exact opposite of what they did with Sam Darnold, I do think the Jets come out of the 2021 offseason as big winners. We're going to stay in the AFC for the second team in today's video, and it is the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, back in free agency, there were a lot of stories and a lot of big things happening, such as the Patriots spending more this offseason than what they had in the previous 10 or 15 offseasons, whatever it was, right? There were a lot of other big things, like Ryan Fitzpatrick going to the football team for one, and Sam Darnold eventually being traded to the Carolina Panthers. But the Chargers low-key had a very good offseason as they added 2 big offensive lineman acquisitions, and when they have a quarterback like Justin Herbert who needs protected like every other quarterback does, this is huge and what will be the transition to Justin Herbert's next part of his career, which is what we expect at this point to take a leap in year number 2. They added Corey Linsley in free agency, which in my opinion was one of the biggest acquisitions and one of the biggest key signings of the offseason for any team, as you get a good center to help out your young quarterback, and then of course they took one of the best tackles in the entire draft in Rashawn Slater from Northwestern without, and this is key here, without ever having to move from the 13. So the Chargers absolutely killed it by adding 2, they get 2 new starters and a left tackle and a center, and of course their offense is going to be as good as ever with Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and others. Now, they did lose Hunter Henry, which, I mean, it's kind of a big loss, but they also signed Jared Cook in place of that. Now, Jared Cook will not be what Hunter Henry is for the rest of the time, as Hunter Henry will probably outproduce Jared Cook in terms of from 2021 and, to the end of time, because he is a lot younger than Jared Cook is. But I don't think Hunter Henry losing him is, it's not like losing Rob Gronkowski or Tony Gonzalez like to, what the Chiefs and the Patriots did in the past. Well, Chiefs like a decade ago and the Patriots just 2 years ago. But what I'm saying is the Hunter Henry void is not that big to replace, especially when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert. So I do like what the Chargers are doing in terms of helping their quarterbacks out. And, both the Chargers and the Jets defenses, mainly the Jets here, but I like what they're doing in terms of helping their quarterback out. That is what matters most. You have to help the quarterback out. And I realize the ideal situation is to win a Super Bowl when the quarterback is in the rookie contract, like the Chiefs in 2019, for example. But in the same sense, the quarterback has to be helped out, and you cannot do what the Jets did to Sam Darnold and really kind of what the Cardinals did to Josh Rosen in 2018. You just can't do that and expect these guys, these rookie quarterbacks, to come in and just take over and be a 5,000-yard passer. It's just not going to happen in year number one. So the Chargers defense is going to be a lot better than the Jets, but what I am saying is I like what they're doing in terms of helping Justin Herbert out, and for that reason, I do think they come out of the offseason as pretty big winners. The next team we have in today's video is the New York Giants, and I know a lot of people are on the fence about Daniel Jones. Some definitively think he is the long-term answer, while some think, trash can Dan, and that he is never going to be a franchise quarterback, and the people that mock the Giants for taking him at 6 overall on draft night are being validated for that original thought that they've stuck with now for 2 years. But I do think they are, at least big winners of this offseason for a couple of reasons. They did trade back, and, Philadelphia ultimately did get Devontae Smith when the Giants were going to take him at pick 11, but they did get a future first for, plus Kadarius Toney. So in a sense, you get Kadarius Toney in a 1 instead of Devontae Smith, and obviously they're going to have to hit on that number 1 pick next year. But what I'm going to say is that number 1 pick they traded with Chicago is not guaranteed to go 12-5, 13-4, and make the playoffs. And just because we think Justin Fields is going to be good, he is not a sure thing, and there's a reason he went pick 11, right? If he was this sure thing, he would have went number 2 right behind Trevor, and there wouldn't have been a question about it. So I do think the Giants getting Kadarius and a 1 is pretty big for them. And not only that, but they also added some key pieces this offseason, like wide receiver Kenny Golladay. And although I think they overpaid a bit for him, they don't really have, they do have a couple players on the roster, but they don't have, a player that needs a $200 million contract to where Kenny Galladay's signing is going to severely affect them and severely limit them as a franchise, because that's not the case. Now, they did lose nose tackle Dalvin Tomlinson to the Minnesota Vikings, but they also re-signed Leonard Williams to a 3-year, $63 million deal. So I do like a lot of the things they did, and also in the draft, they traded back again in the second round, and they got Azeez Ojulari, who I was kind of surprised as much as he fell. I thought he could have went as high as, pick 22 around that area, and it wouldn't have surprised me, but to get him at pick 50 and get a first-round caliber, or at very minimum a high second-round caliber prospect at pick 50 is another win for the Giants. And by the way, this isn't even addressing some of the other moves they made in free agency. They get a solid, Fadi Adenabo is a solid pass rusher. He's not a household name for a reason, but he's a solid pass rusher, and they get him to pair with Leonard Williams and Azeez Ojulari, and quickly this is a team with a young pass rush that could be very good in the next couple of years. So I do like what they are building for, as this team is not in win now mode. They are pretty much set up for the long haul. They are not going to come out and, get off to a scorching hot 9-0 start in 2021, but they're also not going to get off to a dreadful 0-9 start in 2021. So I do like what they're doing in terms of building for the long run, and even if Daniel Jones proves not to be the answer this year, then whatever quarterback they go with in 2022 and beyond will be set up for success, as he will walk into a very favorable situation. And for that reason, the Giants, with or without having their long-term answer at quarterback for this offseason, are pretty good winners. Now, as we wrap up today's video, we're not going to go in depth with a whole other team, but I do want to highlight some other teams in the remaining part of today's video. I loved what Kansas City did on the offensive line. They saw Patrick Mahomes get absolutely killed one game and added tackle Orlando Brown and added Joe Thuney in free agency and pretty much said, look, nice try, Bucks, but it's not going to happen again when we beef up our offensive line. I also like what the Patriots did in free agency and the draft. Now, the Patriots drafts have not gone too well since 2017, but I did like what they did this year. The Vikings, I also loved what they did. They got shredded last year routinely by having young corners, and Who knows what's going to happen with Jeff Gladney, but I did like the acquisition of Patrick Peterson to pair with young corner Cameron Dantzler. There are countless other teams that I could add in today's video, like the Cleveland Browns, for example, and the Baltimore Ravens. But anyways, that is going to wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and no disrespect if I left your team out, because there are a lot of other good teams that had good off seasons. But anyways, that is all I have. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. And until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.